You know what? Right now, as you're listening to these words, there's something extraordinary happening inside you. Your heart is beating without you having to think about it. Your lungs are breathing without you commanding them to. And your mind is processing thousands of pieces of information every single second. You are a walking miracle. And yet so many of us wake up every morning looking in the mirror, and the first thing we do is search for validation from someone else. Isn't that fascinating? We have this incredible biological machine that works flawlessly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, keeping us alive and thriving. And yet we've convinced ourselves that we're not enough unless someone else tells us we are. It's like having the most sophisticated smartphone in the world and constantly asking a broken calculator if you're working properly. I want you to imagine for a moment that you're a tree. Yes, a magnificent oak tree stands tall in a beautiful forest. Now, does that oak tree wake up in the morning and think, "Oh my goodness, I hope the pine tree next to me thinks my leaves look good today"? Does it worry about whether the birds approve of the way it's growing its branches? Of course not. That tree knows exactly what it is. It knows its purpose, and it grows toward the sun without needing anyone's permission or approval. But here's where we humans get it all twisted up. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that our worth comes from outside validation. Maybe it started in school when we learned that gold stars meant we were good, and no stars meant we were somehow lacking. Maybe it was at home when we discovered that certain behaviors got us praise and love, while others got us criticism or silence. And before we knew it, we became approval junkies, constantly looking for our next fix of external validation. Let me tell you something that might shock you. The most successful, happiest, and most fulfilled people I've ever worked with all have one thing in common. They stopped waiting for the world to validate them and started validating themselves. They became their own best friend instead of their worst critic. They learned the secret that I'm about to share with you right now. Your worth is not up for debate. It never was, and it never will be. You didn't come into this world with a price tag that changes based on what others think of you. You came here as a complete, whole, valuable human being, and that hasn't changed one bit since the day you were born. What changed was the story you started telling yourself about yourself. Think about this for a second. When you were a baby, did you worry about whether your cry was melodious enough? Did you hesitate to take your first steps because you weren't sure if your walking style would be approved by others? Not. You were pure, unadulterated authenticity. You expressed your needs. You explored your world, and you grew at your own pace without needing anyone's permission. That authentic self is still inside you right now. It's been buried under layers of conditioning, other people's opinions, and societal expectations, but it's there. And the journey to self-sufficiency and inner strength is about excavating that authentic self and learning to trust it again. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but Martin, we live in a social world. We need other people. We can't just ignore what everyone thinks. And you're right. We are social beings, and healthy relationships are crucial for our well-being. But there's a massive difference between valuing input from people you trust and respect and desperately seeking validation from anyone who will give it to you. It's the difference between a confident person asking for feedback to improve and an insecure person asking for approval to feel worthy. One comes from strength, the other from weakness. One leads to growth, the other to dependency. Here's a story that perfectly illustrates this point. I once worked with a woman named Sarah who was brilliant at her job. She was creative, hardworking, and had incredible instincts for business. But every single decision she made had to be run past at least 5 different people for their approval. She couldn't choose what to wear without asking her sister, couldn't make a business decision without polling her entire team, and couldn't even pick a restaurant for dinner without surveying her friends. Sarah had become so dependent on external validation that she had completely lost touch with her inner compass. She was like a ship without an anchor, constantly being tossed around by the winds of other people's opinions. And the irony? The more she sought approval, the less respect she received from others. People could sense her insecurity, and it made them question her capabilities. The breakthrough came when I asked her a simple question. Sarah, if you were the only person left on Earth, what decisions would you make? At first, she panicked. But I wouldn't know what to do, she said. And I replied, yes, you would. You've just forgotten how to listen to yourself. We spent the next few weeks doing something revolutionary. We practiced making small decisions without asking anyone for input. What to have for breakfast, which route to take to work, what book to read. Simple things that didn't have major consequences, but that allowed her to start flexing her decision-making muscle again. And you know what happened? She discovered that she had excellent judgment. Her instincts were spot on. She started making better decisions when she trusted herself, rather than when she relied on the committee of opinions she had been consulting. As Eleanor Roosevelt so wisely said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Think about the profound truth in those words. Every single time you feel not good enough, every time you feel like you need someone else's approval to validate your choices or your worth, you are giving your consent to that feeling. You are handing over your power to someone else. But here's the beautiful thing about power. It can be taken back just as easily as it was given away. The moment you decide to stop seeking validation from others and start validating yourself, everything changes. It's like switching from borrowing light from other people's candles to lighting your flame. Suddenly, you're not dependent on whether their flame is burning brightly or not. You have your source of light. Now, let me be clear about something. Learning to validate yourself doesn't mean becoming arrogant or dismissive of others. It doesn't mean you stop caring about the people you love, or that you become selfish and inconsiderate. It's quite the opposite. When you stop desperately seeking approval, you become more generous with others because you're not competing for scraps of validation. When you fill your cup first, you have so much more to pour out for others. It's like the oxygen mask analogy they give you on airplanes. You must put your mask on first before helping others, not because you don't care about others, but because you can't help anyone if you can't breathe. Self-validation is your oxygen mask. It keeps you alive and thriving, so you can be there for the people who matter to you. I want you to understand something fundamental about human psychology. We teach people how to treat us by how we treat ourselves. If you're constantly seeking approval, constantly second-guessing yourself, and constantly looking for external validation, you're essentially teaching everyone around you that your opinion of yourself isn't trustworthy. And if you don't trust your judgment, why should they? But when you start validating yourself, when you start trusting your instincts, when you start treating yourself with respect and kindness, something magical happens. Other people start treating you the same way. It's not manipulation, it's just human nature. We tend to mirror the energy that others put out into the world. Think about the people you most admire and respect. I guarantee you, they all have one thing in common. They don't need your approval to feel good about themselves. They might appreciate it, they might value your opinion, but they don't need it to function. There's something beautiful about that kind of self-assurance. It draws people in rather than pushing them away. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor and philosopher, wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This isn't just ancient wisdom, it's the foundation of modern psychology. The only thing you can truly control in this world is your thoughts, your reactions, and your own choices. Everything else is outside your sphere of influence. So why do we spend so much time and energy trying to control what we can't control, other people's opinions, while neglecting the one thing we can control, our self-perception? It's like trying to steer a car by grabbing the wheel of the car next to you while ignoring your steering wheel. It makes no logical sense, yet we do it all the time. Let me share with you the most liberating realization I've ever had in my decades of working with people. Most of the time, other people aren't even thinking about you. I know that might sound harsh, but it's incredibly freeing. While you're lying awake at night worrying about whether someone approved of what you said in that meeting, or whether your outfit looked right, or whether you came across as smart enough, that person has probably forgotten all about it and moved on to thinking about their concerns. We're all walking around with this invisible spotlight that we think is shining on us all the time, but the truth is, everyone else is dealing with their light. They're worried about their performance, their appearance, and their own mistakes. They don't have time to sit around analyzing your every move because they're too busy analyzing their own. This is what psychologists call the spotlight effect, and it's one of the biggest obstacles to developing self-sufficiency. We overestimate how much attention others are paying to us, and we underestimate our ability to handle whatever comes our way. I remember working with a client named David who was terrified of public speaking. He would break out in a cold sweat just thinking about giving a presentation at work. When I asked him what he was afraid of, he said, "Everyone will think I'm stupid. They'll judge everything I say. They'll remember every mistake I make." So I gave him a little assignment. I asked him to think back to the last presentation he attended and tell me everything he remembered about the presenter. Could he recall their exact words? Could he remember their mistakes? Could he even remember what they were wearing? Of course, he couldn't remember most of it. And suddenly, it hit him like a ton of bricks. If he couldn't remember the details of other people's presentations, chances are they wouldn't remember him either. That realization was the beginning of his transformation. He stopped performing for an imaginary audience that was judging his every move and started focusing on simply sharing his knowledge and expertise. And you know what happened? He became an incredible speaker because he was finally being authentic instead of trying to be perfect. Here's something I want you to understand. Seeking approval is a form of control. When we desperately want someone to validate us, we're trying to control their thoughts and feelings about us. But think about how you feel when someone is trying to manipulate your opinion of them. It makes you uncomfortable, doesn't it? You can sense the neediness, the desperation, and it pushes you away. On the other hand, when someone is comfortable in their skin, when they're not trying to impress you or win your approval, there's something magnetic about that energy. You feel more relaxed around them because they're not trying to control how you feel about them. They're just being themselves, and that authenticity is incredibly refreshing. This is why learning to validate yourself is not just about feeling better. It's about becoming more effective in all your relationships. When you stop needing approval, you stop pushing people away with your neediness. When you start validating yourself, you attract people who appreciate authenticity. Now, let me give you some practical tools for building this self-validation muscle. Because, like any muscle, it needs to be exercised regularly to get stronger. First, start paying attention to your internal dialogue. Most of us have a running commentary going on in our heads all day long, and for many people, that commentary is incredibly harsh and critical. You would never talk to a friend the way you talk to yourself. Yet you accept this constant stream of self-criticism as normal. I want you to imagine that you have a radio in your head, and you can change the station anytime you want. Right now, you might be tuned into Critic FM. All criticism, all the time. But there are other stations available. There's encouragement, where you cheer yourself on. There's Problem Solver, where you focus on solutions instead of problems. There's Gratitude, where you notice all the things that are going right in your life. You get to choose which station you listen to. And here's the beautiful thing. The more you tune into positive, supportive stations, the stronger their signal becomes. It's like strengthening a neural pathway in your brain. The more you practice self-compassion and self-encouragement, the more natural it becomes. Second, start keeping what I call a wins journal. Every single day, write down 3 things you did well. They don't have to be major accomplishments. Maybe you were patient with a difficult customer. Maybe you cooked a healthy meal. Maybe you chose to go for a walk instead of scrolling through social media. These small acknowledgments add up to a big shift in how you see yourself. The reason this works is because our brains have something called a negativity bias. We're evolutionarily wired to notice and remember threats and problems more than positive experiences. This served us well when we were living in caves and needed to remember where the dangerous animals were. But in modern life, it just makes us focus on everything that's wrong while taking everything that's right for granted. By consciously acknowledging your daily wins, you're rewiring your brain to notice your competence, your growth, and your progress. You're training yourself to see evidence of your capabilities instead of evidence of your shortcomings. Third, practice making decisions without polling everyone you know. Start small. Choose what to wear without asking anyone's opinion. Pick a restaurant without reading every review online. Choose a movie without checking what everyone else thinks about it. These small acts of self-trust build your confidence in your judgment. Remember, there's no such thing as a perfect decision. Every choice comes with trade-offs, and that's okay. The goal isn't to make flawless decisions. It's to make decisions from a place of self-trust rather than fear of disapproval. Here's something that might surprise you. Confident people make just as many mistakes as insecure people. The difference is in how they handle those mistakes. Insecure people see mistakes as evidence that they're not good enough. Confident people see mistakes as information that helps them make better choices next time. As Maya Angelou so beautifully put it, when you know better, you do better. Every mistake is just a stepping stone to knowing better. When you stop seeing your errors as character flaws and start seeing them as learning opportunities, you free yourself from the paralysis of perfectionism. I want to tell you about another client of mine, Maria, who was stuck in a job she hated because she was afraid of what people would think if she left. She had been there for 8 years, and everyone expected her to stay until retirement. Her family kept telling her how lucky she was to have such a stable job. Even though she was miserable every single day, Maria was trapped by other people's expectations. She was living her life according to other people's definition of success instead of her own. And the cost was enormous. She was depressed, anxious, and felt like she was wasting her life. The turning point came when I asked her, "Maria, if you were on your deathbed looking back at your life, would you regret staying in this job to please other people? Or would you regret leaving to pursue your dreams?" The answer was obvious, but it took courage to act on it. Maria eventually left that job and started her own consulting business. Was everyone supportive? Not. Some people criticized her decision, called her crazy, and predicted he would fail. But you know what? She didn't need their approval anymore. She had learned to validate her own choices, and that inner validation was stronger than any external criticism. Today, Maria is thriving in her business, and, more importantly, she's happy. She learned that other people's opinions about her life are none of her business. What matters is that she's living according to her values and dreams. This brings me to another crucial point. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions about your choices. If someone is disappointed that you didn't do what they wanted you to do, that's their emotion to handle, not yours to fix. You can be compassionate and understanding, but you don't have to sacrifice your happiness to make them feel better. Think about it this way. If you're constantly making choices based on what will make other people happy, you're robbing them of the opportunity to learn how to handle disappointment and respect boundaries. You're treating them like emotional invalids who can't cope with not getting their way. When you start making choices based on your inner guidance, some people might be upset at first, but the healthy people in your life will eventually respect you more for having boundaries and being authentic. And the people who can't handle your authenticity, well, maybe it's time to question whether those relationships are truly serving you. Remember what the Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught us. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. You cannot control other people's reactions to your choices, but you can control how you react to their reactions. You can choose to let their disapproval derail you, or you can choose to stay centered in your own truth. The path to self-sufficiency isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Every time you choose self-validation over external approval, you're building your inner strength. Every time you trust your own judgment instead of seeking permission from others, you're developing your authenticity. Every time you choose to be true to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, you're creating a life that truly belongs to you. Let me share something with you that I've learned after working with thousands of people over the years. The strongest individuals aren't those who never feel doubt or fear. The strongest people are those who feel doubt and fear and choose to act anyway, guided by their own inner compass rather than the opinions of others. There's a beautiful Japanese concept called wabi-sabi that embraces the beauty of imperfection. It's the idea that there's something profoundly beautiful about things that are imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. Your journey towards self-sufficiency is exactly like this. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy of your own approval. You don't need to have it all figured out to trust yourself. You just need to be willing to embrace your beautifully imperfect, ever-evolving self. I want you to think about a master gardener for a moment. Does a gardener plant a seed and then spend every day digging it up to check if it's growing properly? Of course not. The gardener plants the seed, provides the right conditions, water, sunlight, good soil, and then trusts the natural process of growth. They don't need constant validation that the seed is doing what it's supposed to do. You are both the gardener and the seed in your own life. You have within you everything you need to grow into who you're meant to become. But you must trust the process. You must stop digging yourself up every day to check if others approve of your growth. You must provide yourself with the right conditions, self-compassion, self-trust, self-respect, and then allow the natural unfolding to happen. Here's something that might shock you. Most of the approval you're seeking from others, you can give yourself right now. Think about what you're really looking for when you seek validation. Are you looking for someone to tell you that you're smart? You can acknowledge your own intelligence. Are you seeking confirmation that you're attractive? You can appreciate your own beauty. Are you hoping someone will recognize your efforts? You can celebrate your own hard work. The external validation you're craving is just a reflection of the internal validation you're not giving yourself. It's like standing in front of a mirror, hoping the reflection will smile at you first. The mirror can only reflect what you're already expressing. If you want to see approval in the world around you, you must start by approving of yourself. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but isn't that just being delusional? Shouldn't we be realistic about our flaws and limitations? And here's where I want to make an important distinction. Self-validation is not about pretending you're perfect or ignoring areas where you need to grow. It's about treating yourself with the same kindness and encouragement you would show a good friend. If your best friend came to you feeling discouraged about a mistake they made, would you berate them and list all their shortcomings? Of course not. You'd probably acknowledge their feelings, remind them of their strengths, and encourage them to learn from the experience and move forward. That's exactly how you should be talking to yourself. Self-compassion and self-validation don't make you weak or complacent. They make you stronger and more resilient. When you're not wasting energy beating yourself up or seeking approval from others, you have so much more energy available for actual growth and positive action. I once worked with a man named Robert who was a perfectionist to his core. He wouldn't send an email without revising it 15 times. He wouldn't speak up in meetings unless he was certain his idea was brilliant. He wouldn't try new activities unless he was guaranteed to be good at them. Robert was so afraid of disapproval that he had essentially stopped living his life. The breakthrough came when I asked him, "Robert, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?" His eyes lit up as he talked about all the things he would try, all the risks he would take, all the adventures he would have. Then I asked him the follow-up question. "And what would you do if you knew failure was guaranteed to teach you something valuable?" That second question changed everything for him. He realized that he had been so focused on avoiding disapproval that he had forgotten the joy of learning, growing, and exploring. He started what he called his failure resume, a list of all the things he tried that didn't work out perfectly, along with what he learned from each experience. Within 6 months, Robert had learned to play guitar, started a side business, and even tried stand-up comedy. Did he excel at everything immediately? Not, but he was finally living instead of just surviving. He had learned that the approval he was seeking wasn't worth the life he was sacrificing to get it. As the great Nelson Mandela once said, "There is no passion to be found playing small, in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living." Every time you make a choice based on fear of disapproval, rather than your inner truth, you're playing small. You're settling for a life that is less than what you're capable of living. The world doesn't need another person trying to be what they think others want them to be. The world needs you to be authentically, unapologetically you. Your unique perspective, your talents, your personal experiences. These are gifts that only you can bring. But you can't share these gifts if you're too busy trying to be someone else's version of acceptable. Think about the people who have made the biggest positive impact in history. Were they people who sought approval and followed the crowd? Gandhi didn't seek approval when he led India's independence movement through nonviolent resistance. Rosa Parks didn't seek approval when she refused to give up her seat on that bus. Steve Jobs didn't seek approval when he revolutionized technology with designs that many people initially thought were too simple or too different. These individuals changed the world precisely because they were willing to trust their inner guidance, even when it went against popular opinion. They had developed such strong inner validation that external criticism couldn't derail them from their purpose. Now, I'm not saying you need to change the world to be worthy of self-validation. I'm saying that you have the same capacity for inner strength and authenticity that these leaders demonstrated. The scale might be different, but the principle is the same. Trust your judgment, validate your own choices, and live according to your values. Here's a powerful exercise I want you to try. Imagine you're at your funeral. I know, it sounds morbid, but stay with me. What would you want people to say about how you lived your life? Would you want them to say you were always trying to please everyone else? Would you want them to remember you as someone afraid to be themselves? Or would you want them to remember you as someone who lived authentically, who trusted their path, who dared to be genuinely themselves? The beautiful thing about this exercise is that it puts everything into perspective. When you imagine looking back at your life from that final vantage point, the approval or disapproval of others becomes much less important. What becomes important is whether you were true to yourself, whether you lived according to your values, and whether you dared to be authentically you. As Dr. Seuss wisely wrote, "Today you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you." This isn't just cute children's book wisdom. It's a profound truth about human existence. You are unique. There has never been, and will never be, another person exactly like you. You have a particular combination of experiences, perspectives, talents, and dreams that is entirely your own. So why would you try to be a second-rate version of someone else when you could be a first-rate version of yourself? Why would you seek approval for being something you're not when you could celebrate being exactly who you are? The journey to self-sufficiency and inner strength isn't about becoming invulnerable or indifferent to others. It's about becoming so secure in your worth that you can engage with the world from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. When you're not desperately seeking approval, you can offer genuine love. When you're not afraid of criticism, you can take meaningful risks. When you're not trying to be perfect, you can be real. This is your moment. Right now, as you're listening to these words, you have a choice. You can continue living for other people's approval, constantly adjusting yourself to try to earn validation that may never come. Or you can start the incredible journey of learning to validate yourself, of trusting your judgment, of living according to your truth. The choice is yours, and it's a choice you get to make every single day, in every single moment. Choose yourself. Choose authenticity. Choose the courage to be imperfect. Choose the strength that comes from within. You are enough, exactly as you are, right now. You always have been, and you always will be. It's time to start believing it, living it, and sharing that beautiful, authentic you with the world. The world is waiting for your unique gifts, but first, you have to permit yourself to share them. So, here's my challenge for you. Go out there and be magnificently, courageously, authentically you. Stop seeking approval and start giving it to yourself. Stop waiting for permission and start giving it to yourself. Stop looking for validation from others and start validating yourself. Your life is waiting for you to claim it. Your dreams are waiting for you to pursue them. Your authentic self is waiting for you to set it free. The time is now. The person is you, and the power has always been within you. If this message resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that like button if you're ready to start validating yourself. And subscribe for more content that will help you build the inner strength to live life on your terms. Remember, you don't need anyone's permission to be amazing. You already are. Now go out there and show the world what authenticity looks like.